in studio today with Josh Ryan here, and we're going to be talking about a little bit of somber news happening over the weekend. The world, not just the basketball world, not just the sports world, but the entire world lost one of the great legends in Kobe Bryant, and it's really taking its toll on different people, and really just his effect is becoming even more evident now after his passing here.
Yeah, the comparison that some people had made was his death has transcended not just the sports world, but the entire world, in the same way that when John Lennon passed away many decades ago, it came out of not just the music world. Kobe Bryant was one of those athletes that loved him or hate him, everyone respected him. And even if you weren't into basketball or into sports, you kind of inherently knew what Kobe meant. You know, when people are hanging around the office and they throw a rolled up piece of paper into a garbage bin, and everyone knows Kobe. That's from that athlete. And you can't say that about very many athletes. I mean, when you think about Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, other really famous athletes, there's very few that have their name synonymous with sort of a common action that just about everyone has done once in their life. And on top of that, he is one of the all-time greats in the NBA world in terms of his accomplishments and playing for the franchise he did in the Los Angeles Lakers.
For sure, 4th overall in all-time points, being just passed on Saturday by LeBron James. And you mentioned, whether you love him or you hate him, you have to respect him. In their time playing, LeBron and Kobe had quite a bout going, being two of the top players in the NBA. And after retiring, obviously he's taken on an ambassador role there, and he actually congratulated LeBron. That is what I believe is one of the last interactions that the two of them will ever have there. So there's just that respect throughout the entire sports world there, whether it's Tiger Woods, who is a good friend of Kobe, finding out on the 18th hole on Sunday as he walks off, or whoever it may be, Michael Jordan sending out his apologies. Everybody sort of has that respect for Kobe Bryant.
Indeed, and that's something that really sticks with you, that many fan bases obviously hated him because he beat their teams so many times. And no matter what kind of argument you would get into about where he ranks on the greatest of list, myself personally, I'm like a number of other people who thought he was slightly overrated as a player in some aspects. He was more of a top 15 of all time than top 5 of all time. But he had so many huge moments in the NBA playoffs, buzzer-beating threes, that sort of nature. And the fact that he won 5, championships, 2 playoff MVPs, there's not that many guys who have that kind of resume. And he has managed to sort of reshape his image in a way too. Obviously, his legacy is complicated because of a sexual assault case against him in Colorado in the early 2000s that basically neither him or the accuser can talk about it now, is the way the settlement worked. So that's always going to be there, and that's what many people thought of for him for a long time. And yet he was able to rehabilitate himself, become more of a family man, win back his wife Vanessa, and has now been a really large presence in his daughter's lives, supported the WNBA, and as you said before, kind of become a true ambassador to the game for this next younger generation of players in a way that Michael Jordan wasn't really, because Jordan was sort of private with a lot of his life after basketball, whereas Kobe sort of embraced his post-career basketball, even won an Oscar.
Yeah, exactly. Won an Oscar, wrote a book. He was a business owner and supported different groups like the ASAS, which is the After School All-Star Program, to basically provide after-school programs, keeping kids off the street and trying to help better lives in that sense. And I think that just comes down to his heart. That's one thing that he always played with in the basketball world, was heart, and he's known as one of the toughest competitors of all time. One thing that I always think of when I think of Kobe Bryant is when he tore his Achilles tendon, he still got up and he took 2 free throw shots. Most people can't even get up after that moment, but for him to go and make those shots before leaving the game is something else, and I think that alone speaks, so many words about Kobe Bryant there.
Indeed, the memory I'd throw in also is the 60 points to end his career, taking 50 shots to do it in typical Kobe fashion, sort of shooting his way out of a terrible shooting night to then get as many points as he did. And talking to people in the area from Lakeland College and some high school alumni here in Lloyd, there's a lot of people that are just still really stunned even 24 hours later, and I'm not sure this is going to be something that will go away soon, because it does feel weird. It's going to feel very weird to be at see the NBA All-Star game, see the Lakers if they go to the finals, and not have him courtside to watch it all.
For sure, it will be a tough pill to swallow with the passing of the Black Mamba. In studio once again with Josh Ryan, this time to talk about some local sports where we saw some of the Lakeland Rustlers teams. There were some highs and there were some lows throughout this past weekend. And I mean, let's just kick it off, I guess, with some of those highs, starting with the women's volleyball team sweeping their series and really pushing them even further into first place in the ACAC.
Indeed. First place in the North Division, and at this point they're really ranking amongst some of the best teams in the CCAA. 11.6 kills. Kills in volleyball is a very important stat, and they lead the entire ACAC in that department, which includes a nearly undefeated Briarcrest team. So really impressive considering how many new starters they have. Janae Varga obviously has been one of those key ones.
For sure, she's been a centerpiece, being second in aces and third in kills in the entire league. How has she really stepped up from last year?
Well, it's part of it is the growth, playing for Coach Austin Dyer, but also it's the work she's put in over the last couple of summers as well. She comes from a really good volleyball family. The Vargas starred with the Augustana Vikings before that, so really impressive run from her. An impressive run from the women's basketball team as well. The only team really that had a downer was men's volleyball, but both basketball teams getting the sweep, that's obviously huge for them.
For sure, and for the men's basketball team, they had lots of scoring by depth, I guess you could say, which is really good to see, especially coming down the stretch while they're pushing and trying to stay in those playoff contenders in that sort of 4-5 range there. They're going to really have to push hard to finish off the season and try and stick in the playoffs.
Yeah, and they needed these 2 wins coming off of a tough loss to Keano to kind of get themselves back on that pace. Obviously, playing against Nate will be a big matchup for them because that could be where their playoff fate is decided. But yeah, more depth offensively instead of relying on 1 or 2 guys like Quantez Simmons or a guy like Terrell Murdaugh. They got a little bit of everything from their offense over the weekend, and that bodes well again heading into the rest of the weekend.
Now, Josh, there was one girl on the women's basketball team who really stood out, and that was Jaden Cook, going 4 for 4 from deep. Just talk about her play, I guess, as of late, and specifically this past weekend.
Well, and she's been a player who has been a good depth piece for the Rustlers. This year, she's really put in the work to be a better outside shooter, and it's shown, obviously, specifically this weekend. 4 for 4, 17 points, just was red hot from deep, including a buzzer beater in the first half. When they can get that off the bench or in spurts where she only plays about 20 to 25 minutes a game, getting that kind of production from her can be the difference between losing or winning in a conference championship.
For sure, and players like her are really starting to look like all-stars. And speaking about all-stars, the NHL All-Star Game took place this weekend. Josh, what was your favorite, I guess, between the skills competition and the actual tournament? What was your favorite part of it all?
I think my favorite part of it personally was the sort of tongue-in-cheek, sort of wink-wink, hi, we're making friends dynamic between the Flames and the Oilers players present. Obviously, Draisaitl and Tkachuk combining for a goal there. They're joking about it afterwards. There's essentially a hug-it-out moment between Flames and Oilers players. So people are playing nice for now. I still think there's a lot of tension, and when those 2 teams meet soon, there's going to be some fireworks. But in the meantime, it was kind of fun to see them sort of be cordial for the moment in that All-Star Game.
For sure, and I guess that's what the All-Star Games are all about. Nobody's really trying their very hardest, I guess you could say, which is, in my opinion, one of the downfalls of the All-Star Game.
For sure.
But it does bring out that nice human side of the players like we saw with those 2 connecting. My personal favorite moment from the All-Star Game was during the accuracy shooting. Jacob Slavin won, and he's actually the second D-man to do that since Ray Bork. So that's a pretty big accomplishment for himself in his first All-Star Game there. And there was another All-Star Game, I guess, over the weekend with the Pro Bowl in the NFL. And with more NFL news, here's our Abby St. John in the last minute of play.
Thanks, guys. The 54th Super Bowl is less than a week away. The Kansas City Chiefs are looking for their first Super Bowl win in 50 years and are projected to do so with the help of quarterback Patrick Mahomes. To do that, they have to beat the San Francisco 49ers defense, which is a big part of what has made the 49ers so explosive this year. with Nick Bosa, who has 32 tackles, 9 sacks, and 1 interception, and Richard Sherman, who sealed the 49ers' win last week with the game-ending interception. Their defense needs to add pressure and force turnovers if they want to stop Mahomes. However, the 49ers defense may have a harder time stopping Mahomes and his offense. Mahomes leads the league in most receptions at 30-plus and 40-plus yards and leads in deep pass touchdowns with 13. Mahomes is known for getting the ball out fast, and if needed, he can work around the pocket till he finds his opening. The Chiefs' defense needs to stop the 49ers' run game. Jimmy Garoppolo only threw 8 times last week against the Packers, relying heavily on their run game. Statistically, the Chiefs and 49ers match up pretty well, but I think it will be the Chiefs who will be raising the Lombardi Trophy after a 32-27 finish. For your last minute up the play.